Hi guys, so it's me, Nicolette, and today I want to talk a little bit about investing. But before we get into the conversation, remember that none of my videos constitute as financial advice. If you are looking for professional help, please consult an expert or a professional in that space. So let's kick right into it. The way I see investing is the same way I see looking for a partner, a husband, a boyfriend, a life partner, a statement if you are Oprah. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that we don't all have the same taste. Even though some things may be similar, we don't all have the same taste. We don't all have the same expectations. There are some girls that are perhaps looking for, a husband in someone. Then there are some girls that are looking for a friends with benefit. There's some girls that are looking for a yellow bearded devil, and some girls that are looking for a tall, dark savage. So we're all looking for different things when it comes to investing. And I think it's the same way that you need to understand when you approach investing. Number one, the first thing that you need to understand is that investing is about expectations. What are your expectations? We all talk about the mere fact that disappointments are because people plant or create these huge expectations on certain things in their life, and then when those things don't come to be, they get disappointed. It's the same thing we do, ladies, when we're looking for a man, and I'm sure it's the same thing that men do when they're looking for a woman, right? You have all these expectations, you don't communicate them to the person that you are dealing with, and then ultimately, if they don't give you what you want, you then get upset or you get frustrated, you lose your mind and everything, and it becomes a whole drama. It's the same thing that happens in investing. I always get sad when people say to me, my mom has been investing for the past 30 years and she only got 600,000 rand. And I'm like, how? How was that even possible? But truly, it's because people really think that there is a blanket approach when it comes to investing. There is not a blanket approach when it comes to investing. The first thing that you need to understand is who you are. Same thing when it comes to dating. You cannot date and you cannot think you can carry a relationship with someone if you do not know who you are. What type of a person are you? What are your likes? What are your dislikes? What are some of the things you can tolerate? For instance, I can never tolerate a person who is not punctual. If you say to me, "Ke tlo go lata ka 9 o'clock," I'm going to pick you up at 9 o'clock. You must pick me up at 9 o'clock. Because trust me, at 10 past 9 o'clock, I'm already taking off my clothes because I'm tired. So it's the same thing that you need to understand when you are going into investing. What are some of the things that you are not willing to tolerate? What are some of the things that you're willing to be okay with? Also, what is your situation? Because sometimes we want to get into relationships, we want to get married, but we are not even emotionally prepared for marriage. It's the same thing with investing. Are you actually prepared to invest? The money that you've got, is it your last money that you've got? And you really cannot be taking any risks. You cannot be dating the tall, dark brother with a beard or, who looks like chocolate when it's like sex walking. Because he might just hurt you. It's the same thing. Kind of very risky, right? So it's the same thing you need to ask yourself. And these are some of the questions that you can really ask yourself before you go into an investment. Number one, what type of risk appetite do I have? And let me explain something that a lot of financial advisors who probably hate me can never ever really explain to people, is the fact that you might have different risk appetites for different spaces in your life. You might have different risk appetites for different investments. Right now, as Nicolette, I probably could date a bearded man, right? Because I've gone through the emotions. I kind of get a better understanding. But a few years ago, I probably couldn't. My heart was so fragile. I'd just been out of a 7-year relationship. There was no way I could be getting into that kind of a relationship. So it's the same thing with your money. Now you might only have 10,000 rand, but in the near future you might have a disposal of 10,000 rand every single month. So your risk appetite kind of differs when it comes to your situation and how much money you've got and how long are you willing to invest it in, right? So that's your risk appetite. That's number one. Number two, the other thing that you need to be looking at, what are your expectations realistically, right? So most of us will date for like 10 months and then in 10 months we're just like, when is this man going to propose to me? I mean, really, it's time to propose. Realistically, are you willing to give your investment enough time for it to push out some returns for you? Yes or no? Because the other thing that comes with investment is a thing that we call compound interest. And compound interest, the one immediate ingredient that it really needs is time. So if you're going to be putting your money away, you need to understand that it needs a little bit of time so that it can cook those numbers, so that you can get real numbers at the end of your maturity date of your investment, right? Same thing as when you get a marriage. You don't want a half-cooked man to be wanting to marry you because that relationship is not going to last, right? So it's the same thing when it comes to investments. You can't rush your investments, but also at the same time, you need to be clear on how long you are willing to wait for that investment. How long can you realistically wait? And what is the return that you want realistically? So in other words, if you're going into a 3-year type of investment, you need to understand what then is the reality of the returns that you can possibly get. The other thing you need to look into is what are you willing to pay for this relationship to work? So number one, we're talking about administration costs of if you use a broker or a brokerage firm. If you're going to be using a broker, you know you got to pay some level of brokerage fee, administration fee, right? But also you know that there's a thing called a tax man in this country. So if your amount of returns or your interest that you receive from any of your investments in one taxable year goes above 23,800 as an individual, you are going to be taxed on that. So it's very important that you also remember that there is the tax man that gets involved. Same thing with the relationship, my darling. Movies, get tax. Okay, data, get tax. So it's all these things. Looking nice is tax. Makeup is tax. You know, flowers from your man is tax. So it's these kind of things as how demanding is your investment? It's the same as you having to ask yourself, how demanding am I as a person to date? So these are some of the things that you need to be looking into. In the next video, I'll tell you guys some of the things that I have invested in so far, what were my reasons for investing in those kind of things, and why I feel these are great investments. Mwah!